I shouldn't have followed him, but I had no choice left. Because the world I was running from wasn't just broken. It was watching me. It started with a message not meant for me, just a glimpse. A single line, "Don't let her leave after midnight." That was it, no name, no explanation, but everything inside me went silent after reading it, because I knew one thing for sure: it was about me. That night, I didn't pack, didn't think, didn't even cry. I just left, barefoot, cold, lost. Like staying alive required distance. The streets were empty, too empty, like even sound had disappeared. And that's when I saw him. Standing under a dying streetlight, not moving. Just there, like he already knew I would come. "You shouldn't be here," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it stopped me more than fear did. Then I heard it, footsteps behind me, slow, controlled, following me. I turned slightly, closer than before. "Do you trust me?" he asked. I didn't, but I nodded, because fear doesn't wait for honesty, and in one motion he stepped in front of me, blocking me from the world. The footsteps stopped when they saw him. Then they disappeared so fast, like they never existed. When the silence returned, it felt heavier than danger. I stared at him. What just happened? He didn't answer immediately. His attention stayed on the dark road ahead, like he was making sure it stayed empty. Then he said quietly, "You were never supposed to be outside alone." That didn't explain anything, but it explained everything in a weird way. He didn't ask me to follow him. He simply started walking, like it was already decided. Somehow I followed him, not because I trusted him, but because I didn't trust anything else anymore. His apartment was too still. Not messy enough to feel lived in, not warm enough to feel welcoming. It felt like a place built for waiting. "Sit," he said softly. I did, because I was running out of ways to refuse reality. My feet were torn from running barefoot. I hadn't even realized how bad it was until he crouched in front of me without a word. His hands were steady, careful. Too careful for someone like him. He cleaned the wounds, wrapped them like it mattered. Then he handed me a hoodie. I didn't put it on. Just held it, because taking it felt like crossing a line I wouldn't be able to uncross. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. The silence stretched slow, deliberate, like he was measuring how much truth I could survive. "Because I saw you," he said finally, "before anyone else did." That should have scared me. It didn't. It settled somewhere deep in my chest, instead quiet, permanent, like something that had been waiting for me long before I ever met him. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from fear, but because I could feel him, not touching, not speaking, just there. Close enough that the air shifted around him. Close enough that breathing felt different, like gravity had changed and I had no choice but to fall into it. I kept thinking about him, about my situation. And somehow that made everything worse, because this place, this strange, silent space with him, felt safer than anything I had run from, and that didn't feel right. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't being ignored. Wasn't being pushed away. I was noticed. Days passed. He never asked questions, never demanded answers, never crossed a single line. And that made it worse, because he still knew. When I went quiet, when I skipped meals, when my eyes lingered too long on exits, he noticed everything. He noticed too much. You notice everything too much. Even something small can't hide itself from you, I said once. He looked at me then. Not casually. Not briefly. He really looked. 'Cause noticing keeps you alive. Noticing people, their moods, their movements, the smallest shifts. That's what kept me alive all those years in my stepmother's house after my father died. I learned early, if you miss something, you don't get a second chance. Even that day, she was passed out on the sofa. I thought she needed help. Tried to take her to her room. That's when I saw the message. From a man I didn't know. But I didn't need to. I understood enough. They were coming for me. So I ran. Barefoot. No plan. Just instinct. Thinking about it now, I still can't believe how I survived. So when he said noticing keeps you alive, I nodded. Because I knew. After he left for work, I wondered what he really was. But I was too exhausted to care for long. Until one night, I saw his phone. A message: "She is still outside your control. Return her. They are searching. You'll get into trouble." My hands went cold. And when I looked up, he was already there. Watching me read it. "You saw it," he said. Not angry. Not violent. Just tired. "Who are they?" I asked. Silence. Then, I was trained to remove problems people don't want seen. That wasn't a threat. It was history. I stopped. He added quietly. "A long time ago." "Then why are they still after you?" His eyes shifted. Just slightly. Like something inside him was resisting the truth, because I failed to erase something. A pause. Then, you. My breath stopped. You knew me before? I whispered. No, but his voice softened. I saw you once. Years ago. You were just there, existing in a place you didn't belong. I couldn't forget you. That was the beginning of everything I was never supposed to feel. Then he said it. About my father. About who he was. About what they did. And finally, I was sent to kill you. No emotion. No pride, just absence. I told them I did, but I didn't. And that's when I understood, he didn't fail the mission. He failed to stay empty. After that, something changed. Not in him, in the space between us. That night, I almost left not because I wanted to but because I needed to know if I still could. He didn't stop me, didn't move, didn't reach for me. Don't worry, if you walk out I won't follow, he said quietly. That broke something in me because I understood then he wasn't trapping me. I turned back, walked toward him. I choose you, I said for the first time. You sure? He asked. Yes. That was enough. His hand lifted, stopped just before my face, waiting like permission mattered more than instinct, and when I didn't move away he finally touched my cheek. Carefully, like I was something he had been afraid to ruin. Then he said it so quietly I almost didn't hear it. I've spent years learning how not to want anything. A pause. But you make that difficult. That was the moment I realized, he wasn't just protecting me. He was fighting himself around me, and when I didn't move away, he finally touched me. Carefully. But somewhere deep in the house, his phone lit up again. A new message, short, we know you didn't finish the job. And this time, he didn't let go of me. That night, the air changed, not outside from the inside. He felt it before I did. You should stay here, he said quietly. His voice was careful, like something underneath it was trying to break through. Why? I asked. Then a knock, not deliberate, 3 knocks, perfect rhythm. Like whoever stood outside already knew exactly how this would unfold. His expression shifted just slightly, but I saw it. That was the first time I realized he wasn't afraid of them, he was afraid of losing me. Don't move. She's not leaving, he said. After a pause there was a quiet laugh from outside. You're getting attached. That word changed everything. Attached, like it was a weakness, like it was something he wasn't allowed to feel. He didn't respond, but I saw it. The tension in his hand, the way his fingers curled. And then he closed the door, like ending a conversation that didn't deserve to continue. When he turned back to me his expression softened, like whatever darkness had surfaced was already being pushed back down. It's fine, he said, but it wasn't. I could feel it. Who were they? I asked. He looked at me for a long moment, longer than necessary, like he was studying me, not just answering me. People I stopped working for. My stomach tightened. Working for what? He stepped closer into my space, into my breathing. For finishing unwanted things for money, he said. A pause, then softer. Don't worry, they can't do anything under my watch. Even they know that. That's why they choose to attack you when I was out of town. Those sentences didn't leave the room. It stayed. It settled because suddenly I understood something I wasn't ready to understand. His entry in my life didn't start the day it started long before that, before I noticed anything, before I knew I was being watched. That night he didn't sleep. At some point, I whispered. You're not going to leave me, are you? He looked at me immediately, too fast, like the idea itself triggered something deeper than thought. No. No hesitation, no doubt, just certainty. Then quieter. Even if I should. That was when it shifted completely, because I realized he wasn't staying because it was right. He was staying because he couldn't stop himself anymore. He made coffee like nothing had changed, but his eyes, they never rested. Windows, door, corners, and me, always back to me. You're thinking too much, I said softly. I'm thinking enough, he replied. Then he looked at me and something in his expression was different. My chest tightened. What do you mean? He didn't answer. Instead he reached out, stopped just before touching my hand, not because he wasn't sure, but because he was waiting, watching. If I pull away. I didn't. That was the mistake. Or maybe the beginning. Because the moment I didn't move, something in him changed subtly. His hand didn't just touch mine, it stayed longer than necessary. Why do you look at me like that? I asked. He didn't answer immediately. For once he hesitated, then quietly. Because I know what happens to things I care about. My heart slowed. And what happens? I whispered. His voice dropped, darker now, less controlled. They get taken. A pause, then softer, more dangerous. So I don't let go anymore. Suddenly I understood the difference. Before he was protecting me, now he was keeping me. That night I couldn't sleep, not from fear but from the way the space between us had changed. Cause I always wanted someone to protect me. He was near the window, watching the world like it was something he no longer trusted to exist. Yet I walked toward him. Go back, he said softly. But I didn't. I sat beside him, and for the first time his expression broke, not into emotion, into something deeper, something raw. You don't have to sit alone, I said. After long silence he spoke quiet unsteady in a way he couldn't hide anymore. I've been alone so long. A pause. I don't remember how to stop. He didn't move away either. That was the moment everything changed, not loud, not sudden, permanent. Because after that night he stopped treating distance like safety and started treating it like something he refused to allow, and somewhere in that shift I realized something that should have scared me. He wasn't just afraid of losing me, he was becoming the kind of person who wouldn't let that happen. It started with silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that feels like the world is standing outside your door with its hand already on the handle. He noticed it before I did. Of course he did. That morning, he didn't open the curtains, didn't make coffee, didn't move for a long time. He just stood there, listening. What is it? I asked softly. He didn't answer immediately. Then quietly, they found us. My chest tightened. Who? He turned toward me, eyes darker than usual. The men your father made enemies of. He didn't soften it, didn't lie. And maybe that was kinder. After my father died, everything I knew collapsed too fast for grief to catch up. But now the truth came in pieces sharp enough to cut. My father had been more than a man with secrets. He had been a CIA agent. Years ago, during an operation no one would ever publicly admit happened, he killed the son of a powerful mafia king. The kind of man who measured grief in blood. The kind who answered pain with generations of pain. So when my father died, the bounty was placed on me. $2 million. To whoever brought proof I was gone. Not taken. Not hidden. Gone. I stared at him. You knew. Yes. How long? Long enough. Why didn't you tell me? He stepped closer. Because I wanted 1 week where you could breathe without knowing the world had priced your death. That answer hurt more than the truth. Because it meant he had cared before I understood how much. That evening, the front door opened. No knock. No warning. 3 men entered like they owned fear itself. Calm suits. Empty eyes. They smiled when they saw me and said, there she is. He moved before I could breathe. Not wildly. Not loudly. Just fast. The first man hit the floor before I understood what happened. The second reached for his coat and never finished the motion. The third backed away, suddenly aware the stories about him had probably been true. He stood between me and them. Cold in a way I had never seen, directed outward. You should have stayed away, he said. The last man laughed shakily. You chose a girl over money? Over freedom? He tilted his head slightly. No, a pause. I chose her over everything. Then the fight ended, quickly, terrifyingly. Like violence was a language he hated but still spoke fluently. When it was over, he turned to me immediately. All that coldness vanished. Are you hurt? His hands checked my shoulders, my arms, my face. As if the only damage that mattered would be mine. I'm okay, I whispered. His jaw clenched. You shouldn't have seen that, but I did. He looked away for a moment. Not ashamed, just angry that the world kept dragging ugliness to my feet. By midnight, we were gone. No bags, no goodbyes, just a stolen hour and an engine cutting through rain. We drove through the dark with the headlights off whenever another car passed. I sat beside him, pulse racing, while he kept one hand on the wheel and the other wrapped around mine like letting go would lose me. Behind us, lights appeared, then multiplied. They found the road, I whispered. They found the wrong one, he replied. He turned suddenly onto a narrow dirt path lined with trees. Branches scraped the car. Mud kicked high behind us. Gunshots cracked in the distance. My breath stopped. He leaned across me, pushing my head down gently. Stay low. What about you? I'm driving. Even terrified, I almost laughed. He drove like someone who knew exactly how panic moved and how to outrun it. The road ended near an abandoned storage shed. He killed the lights. The cars passed the turnoff. For 10 seconds, everything was silent. Then footsteps. He looked at me. Stay here. No, his voice lowered. Please. That single word scared me more than the guns. He stepped into the dark. I heard shouts, running, a struggle, then silence again. Too much silence. When he came back, there was dirt on his shirt and blood on his knuckles that wasn't his. You're hurt, I said. Not enough to matter. It matters to me. He froze. Just for a second, then something in his expression softened in a way violence never could. We kept moving. 2 trains. 1 fishing boat. A bus where he never slept once. Cheap motels where he checked windows 3 times before letting me inside. Back roads where every passing engine made him tense. Once, at a roadside diner, I came back from the restroom and found him standing over a man who had tried to photograph me. The man was pale, shaking, deleting everything. He looked at me the moment I returned and stepped back like nothing happened. You okay? He asked. I stared. You're terrifying. Only when necessary. Then, after a pause, did he look at you too long? I should have been concerned. Instead, I laughed. Weeks later, we reached a small countryside town folded between hills and farmland where no one asked names if rent was paid on time. We rented a tiny white house with a crooked fence, wild roses, and a kitchen too small for 2 people. He insisted it was perfect. It leaks when it rains, I pointed out. I'll fix it. You don't know how. I'll learn. And he did, badly. He hammered his thumb twice, swore once, glared at the roof like it had betrayed him personally. I laughed so hard I cried. He stared at me the entire time like my happiness was more interesting than victory. Life became strangely gentle. It had been months since anyone tried to kill us. Months since broken doors. Months since blood on the floor and engines in the dark. Now the loudest danger in our life was him trying to cook. I woke to the smell of something burning. Again. I followed it into the kitchen and found him staring at a pan like it had personally betrayed him. You're doing that thing again, I said sleepily. What thing? Trying to fight breakfast. It started first. I laughed. He looked over at me, and whatever argument he had disappeared instantly, because I was wearing one of his shirts. Nothing else but bare legs and messy hair. His eyes darkened in that quiet way they always did when he forgot the rest of the world existed. You need to stop looking at me like that, I said. Like what? Like toast isn't the thing burning. He glanced at the smoking pan, turned off the stove without looking, then walked straight toward me. Slowly, deliberately, like there was nowhere else worth being. When he reached me, he slid an arm around my waist and pulled me against him. I can buy more toast, he murmured. You're impossible. You're distracting. I smiled. You were staring first. I live here, he said calmly. So do I. Exactly. I laughed into his chest. That was the strange thing about him. He could be terrifying to everyone else. But with me, he was all rough edges turned soft. He kissed my forehead while I made coffee because he had ruined breakfast again. He stood too close while I cooked, pretending to help and mostly stealing touches. A hand at my waist. Fingers brushing mine, his chin on my shoulder while I stirred eggs. You know, normal people give space in the kitchen, I said. I'm not normal people. That's true. And you like it. I glanced back. Unfortunately, his mouth curved slightly. Later that afternoon, I went outside to hang laundry. He also followed me. You know, I'm only hanging clothes. I know. You know, nothing dangerous is happening. I know. Then why are you here? He took a shirt from the basket and clipped it to the line beside mine. To supervise. You don't know how. I know enough. You clipped the sleeve. It's artistic. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped the basket. He watched me the whole time like laughter was the rarest thing he'd ever seen. That evening, rain started suddenly. Heavy and warm. I ran into the yard to pull the laundry down. He was behind me in seconds. You'll slip. I'm fine. You say that right before bad decisions. You chased armed men through a highway. And you're still the reckless one. Rain soaked us both within seconds. My hair stuck to my face, his shirt clung to his shoulders. I reached up and pushed wet hair from his forehead. He went still every time I touched him first. It was like the world paused to watch. What? I asked softly. You do that, he said. Do what? Act like you have no idea what you do to me. I smiled. Maybe I don't. That's dangerous. Then he picked me up without warning. I yelped and grabbed his shoulders. What are you doing? Preventing you from slipping. You're kidnapping me. You live here, my darling. He carried me inside while I laughed and pretended to struggle. Once we were in the kitchen, he set me on the counter too gently for someone so dangerous, too carefully for someone so obsessed. Rain tapped against the windows. The room smelled like coffee and storm air. He stood between my knees, hands resting lightly on my thighs. Not possessive, just there. Like closeness was a need he'd stopped apologizing for. You're staring again, I whispered. I know. Why? Because I can. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. I rolled my eyes. He kissed me before I could respond. Slow. Warm. The kind of kiss that felt like being chosen on purpose. When he pulled back, I touched his jaw. You've gotten softer. I burned breakfast. I organized blankets. You planted flowers. They were for you. I smiled. That proves my point. He leaned in until our foreheads touched. No, he said quietly. You are the point. My heart betrayed me by melting immediately. You can't just say things like that. I can. It's unfair. You stay anyway. That night, we lay in bed while thunder rolled outside. I was half asleep when I felt him tuck the blanket higher around my shoulder. You know I'm awake, I murmured. I know. Taking care of you is peaceful. I turned toward him in the dark. That's the most romantic thing you've ever said. No, it isn't. Then what is? He was silent for a moment. Then his arm tightened around me. The most romantic thing I've ever said, he murmured near my hair, was when I told Death no. I stared at him. That was dramatic. It was true. I laughed quietly and kissed his chest. Obsessive. Yes. Mine? His hand slid into my hair gently. Entirely. I should have argued. Instead, I smiled against him and fell asleep there, wrapped in the arms of the man who once fought the world for me, and now argued with toast in the mornings. He burned breakfast every morning until he learned not to. He planted vegetables with the seriousness of military strategy. He followed me room to room without pretending otherwise. If I went outside, he came too. If I took longer than usual returning from the market, he was already halfway down the lane looking for me. Obsessive. Hopelessly obvious. And somehow, sweet. You know that's not normal, I told him once as he stood in the kitchen doorway watching me make tea. What part? The part where you stare at me like I'll disappear. He considered it. Then he crossed the room, wrapped his arms around my waist from behind, and buried his face against my shoulder. There, he murmured, problem solved. He never hurt me. Never frightened me with his devotion. If anything, he treated me like something sacred and breakable, even when I wasn't. He memorized how I liked my coffee, kept blankets warmed near the fire because my feet got cold, learned to braid my hair badly just because I once mentioned wanting to know how it felt, bought flowers because I paused to smell some on a walk, and when nightmares dragged me awake, he held me like sleep itself had offended him. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me while I read, while I folded laundry, while I simply existed. What? I'd ask. Nothing. That's a lie. His mouth would soften. I'm making sure you're real. The obsession never left. It deepened. He hated closed doors between us. Hated when I walked alone at dusk. Hated strangers learning my name. He never demanded. Never ordered. But his need to keep me close lived in everything he did. One evening, I asked the question that had lived quietly inside me for months. If I ever wanted to leave, would you let me? He went still. The room itself seemed to pause with him. Then he walked over, knelt in front of where I sat, and took my hands carefully. If you truly wanted happiness somewhere else, he said quietly, I would open the door myself. My throat tightened. And then? His eyes lifted to mine. And then I would spend the rest of my life wanting what I can't have. There it was. The truth of him. Not ownership. Not cruelty. Love so intense it had nowhere else to go. I touched his face. I'm not asking because I want to leave. He closed his eyes briefly at that, then kissed my palm like gratitude hurt. Years passed. The bounty faded into rumor. Old enemies died. New ones forgot. But he never relaxed completely. Sometimes I'd wake at night and find him checking the locks before returning to bed to make sure I was still there. Sometimes I'd come home from town and he'd hold me a little too long. Sometimes he'd say my name for no reason except to hear that I answered. And I always did. We looked happy to everyone else. We were happy. That was the strange part. Our love was not simple. It was watchful, possessive, tender to the point of ache. He loved me like the world had once tried to take me and he had never forgiven it. I loved him knowing fully what he was. Knowing he would never let go easily. Knowing some part of him would always stand between me and every exit. And choosing him anyway. One night, years later, I found him in the garden staring at the stars. What are you thinking about? I asked. He pulled me into his lap as if distance was still offensive. How close I came to never meeting you. That's dramatic. It's true. Then his arms tightened around me. Too much. Just enough. You know I'm obsessed with you, he said into my hair. I know. You know I'll never stop. I know. You know I'd follow you anywhere. I turned and kissed him softly. I know. He looked almost troubled. That doesn't scare you? I smiled against his mouth. It should. A pause. But I stayed. And that was our love story. Not clean. Not ordinary. But ours. The world once put a price on my death. He answered by building me a life. And even now, after everything, he still watches me like losing me would end him. Maybe it would. Maybe some loves are dangerous only because they are so deep. Maybe some people are made to adore too much. Maybe I was always meant to be loved by the man who could never let me go. And maybe, I never wanted him to.